Leo Tolstoy was 53 years old when he started hiding the ropes in his house. The rifles too, the knives. Not from his children, not from strangers, from himself. This was the man who wrote War and Peace, Anna Karenina, the man Dostoyevsky called the greatest living writer on earth. Governments feared him. Readers wept over his pages. He owned thousands of acres of land, a mansion, 13 children, a legacy that would outlast empires. And he was hiding the ropes because he didn't trust himself around them. He kept asking himself one question, small at first, almost quiet. What comes next? Leo Nikolaevich Tolstoy was born in 1828 on Yasnaya Polyana, a vast estate south of Moscow, white birch trees, open fields, the sound of serfs working the land before dawn. He was the fourth of 5 children. By the time he was 9, both of his parents were dead. No explanation, no goodbye. They were simply gone. You can feel it in everything he ever wrote, this obsessive need to understand why people suffer, why the ones you love disappear without warning, why loss arrives without reason. He spent the rest of his life writing about abandonment, maybe because he never understood his own. At 23, he joined the army, fought in the Caucasus. Once, on the edge of a battlefield, he looked into the eyes of a dying man, a stranger, and the man looked back. No words, just that. Tolstoy never forgot it, and in the middle of all of it, he wrote, not because he planned a career, because it was the only thing that made the chaos bearable. The question hadn't arrived yet, but it was coming. By his 30s, Tolstoy was celebrated across Russia. He returned to Yasnaya Polyana, inherited the estate, opened a school for serf children, and then he met Sofia Andreevna Bers. She was 18. He was 34. Before the wedding, he handed her his diary, every affair, every failure, every dark corner of his past. He needed her to know who he was. She read it. She stayed. They married in 1862. Some nights, long after the children were asleep, Sofia sat by candlelight and copied his manuscripts by hand, page after page of his impossible handwriting. She ran the estate, raised the 13 children, and still she copied, as if she knew that what he was building was worth protecting. And Tolstoy wrote, War and Peace took 6 years, over 500,000 words. When Dostoyevsky finished reading it, he wrote that Tolstoy was without equal among living writers. Then came Anna Karenina, then the letters from kings, the crowds outside his gate, the name printed in newspapers across the world. He had everything. And then, quietly, what comes next? He wrote about it himself, in a short book called A Confession, unpublishable because the censors wouldn't allow it. He described a feeling that arrived without warning, not grief, not illness, something stranger. He would be standing in the middle of his life, family around him, work going well, and suddenly, why? Why finish the book? Why eat dinner? Why wake up tomorrow? What comes next? And what comes after that? And then what? Every answer led to the same edge. Fame ends, pleasure fades, even love, even the children. None of it could hold the question back, because the question wasn't about what he had. It was about what any of it meant. He wrote, My life came to a standstill. I could breathe, eat, drink, sleep, but there was no life in me. This was a man who had climbed every mountain he had been told to climb and found the top empty. He hid the ropes. He hid the rifles. Tolstoy looked for answers everywhere: science, reason, philosophy. He read Schopenhauer, a philosopher who said life has no meaning, that a blind and indifferent force drives everything forward, that suffering is the only certainty. For a moment, Tolstoy felt something close to relief. Finally, someone else who saw it clearly. But even that wasn't enough. Naming the darkness did not dissolve it. Nothing held. And then one morning, he watched an old peasant working outside. No land of his own. No books. No theory. The man bent down, picked up his tools, and went to work. No hesitation. No question on his face. Tolstoy watched him for a long time. He became, in his own strange way, a Christian. Not the Christianity of the Orthodox Church, which he despised, but the Christianity of the Sermon on the Mount. Non-violence, simplicity. Give away what you have. He wanted to give away the estate, the copyrights, everything. Sofia said no. The question got quieter, but it never left. For the next 2 decades, Tolstoy and Sofia lived inside the same house in opposite worlds. Sofia was not wrong. She had 13 children to protect, a family that depended on the estate, the royalties, the stability Tolstoy now wanted to dissolve in the name of principle. She had spent 30 years building something real, and her husband wanted to abandon it for an idea. They kept diaries, both of them, and in those pages you can see 2 people who loved each other, genuinely, trapped inside visions of life that could no longer coexist. Tolstoy wanted to renounce, Sofia wanted to protect. Neither was the villain. That's what made it unbearable. The last years were loud with argument and silent with grief. Tolstoy's followers surrounded the house, treating him like a prophet. Sofia watched strangers walk through her home as if she were an obstacle in someone else's story. And the question, what comes next, was still there. Even after the conversion, even after decades of trying. On the night of October 28, 1910, Leo Tolstoy left. He was 82 years old, past midnight. He woke his doctor, asked him to pack quietly, and walked out of Yasnaya Polyana without telling Sofia. He didn't know where he was going. Somewhere simpler. He never arrived. The cold caught him on the train. Pneumonia. They stopped at a small station called Astapovo. A station master's house, a low ceiling, a single bed. He died there 11 days later. The world's press waited outside. Sofia was not allowed in until the final hours. What he found at the end, if he found anything, he didn't say. But here is what he left behind. Not the answer, the question. What comes next? And then what? And after that, what? Most of us spend our lives running from it, building things, finishing things, acquiring things, anything to keep it quiet. Tolstoy stopped running at 53, faced it directly, spent the last 30 years not solving it, but refusing to pretend it wasn't there. Tolstoy couldn't answer it. Can you?